Hello, everyone. We are back with a match preview for Toronto FC. We play Wednesday, August 5th. As always, Ron is here with us. Say hello, Ron.
Hey guys.
And this week we have a special guest from north of the border. Mark from A Mistake by the Lake is joining us. Say hello, Mark.
Good morning.
And before we actually start, Mark, how did you come up with that name for your blog?
I'm a longtime fan in the Toronto area, and where the stadium is in Toronto used to be where the Blue Jays played. There was a stadium there called Exhibition Stadium, and it was known as the Mistake by the Lake because it had been a Canadian football stadium, and half of it still looked like a conventional gridiron football stadium, and the other half looked like a baseball stadium stuck onto it. So it was really the worst place to see any kind of sports. And they completely knocked it down, and so when the soccer team arrives and we're building a new stadium right on top of the grounds where this old ugly stadium used to be, I thought, let's keep the Mistake by the Lake phrase alive. I know Cleveland is also known as the Mistake by the Lake, but I had no idea when I named it Mistake by the Lake that the team would be so sad for so long that people think that I'm making a comment on the team rather than the history of the stadium. So that's the story.
All right. Well, for us Orlando City fans, I would venture to say most of us know nothing about Toronto, so there's some fun Toronto facts for the viewers. Anyways, we'll jump right in. As usual, Toronto is not in great form. They have 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses in their last 5. They lost pretty bad in their last match to New England Revolution. Altidore had a red card. He kicked a guy. I don't know what he was thinking. Bradley didn't play, and Jaravinko came off at half. I don't even know what his health was. Hopefully Mark will be able to help us with that. As far as Orlando City goes, we are going to forget about all of July, and we had a great last game with a win 5-2 over who I consider our rivals, Columbus. So I'm not going to talk about our last 5. We played a funny formation, but it worked. So I'm really happy about that. I thought Bowden and Ash linked up great on that left side. I was really surprised to see Bowden play as a winger. And so other than that, Jaravinko leads Toronto in goals and assists and shots. Altidore is second with 7 goals, and Bradley has, I think, 2 goals and 3 assists. So, that's who Toronto's led by. Their form is what it is. We've played them once. They beat us 2-0 at home. Altidore absolutely owned Seb Hines. But thankfully this week we will not have to see Altidore, as he should be suspended on a red card. So with that said, Mark, we'll just go to you first. What kind of lineup should we expect from Toronto this week?
Well, it's a bit of a head scratcher because we're not sure of Michael Bradley's injury. He came back from the Gold Cup and was put on the injury list for 7 to 10 days, so we're not sure if he's going to play. Jaravinko was injured enough that he didn't play in the All-Star game. Altidore played in his place. So at halftime, the Toronto coach, Greg Vanney, said that he was saving Jaravinko for future games. So it's most likely that we'll see him against Orlando. But as you say, Altidore's gone. And the supporting cast... if without Bradley and Altidore, there really isn't someone to step into those shoes to lead the attack. And Jaravinko, on his own, he's supremely talented, but he's also a fairly small athlete. And if you double cover Jaravinko, we don't really have another attack route other than give it to Jaravinko. We've we've seen him have some brilliant games, but we've also seen other teams, especially New York City, find a way to shut him down and isolate him. So that's we're concerned about Wednesday.
All right, and just how about real quick, or yeah, we'll just go to. So, who would maybe be a player to watch or a homegrown player that maybe could step in and not fill the shoes of one of your superstars, but put in a solid shift for you guys on Wednesday?
Last night, our homegrown player, Jonathan Osorio, who's a midfielder, he scored the goal for Toronto. He's been with us for years. He's very talented. However, I think he's more of a central midfielder, and we are forever pushing him out of his position to play the wing, which isn't his natural position. Plus, we have a lot of attack coming from the back, so Osorio ends up having to support other players. Perhaps with no Bradley, Osorio can be in more of an attacking position. He would be a guy who, he proved last night, he can put the ball in the net. However, he doesn't often get put in places to shine, so to speak.
Okay, and what kind of formation should we expect? Are you guys a team that has one consistent formation, or do you guys change formations all the time?
It's a pretty consistent formation. Usually it's 4 in the back, but the left back and the right back, which is often Ashton Morgan and Justin Morrow, also act like wing backs. They are forever going forward because our midfield, our 4 in the midfield, sort of play as a central diamond. With if Bradley's playing, he'll be at the top of the diamond. So it's a 4-4-2, but quite often it looks like a 2-6-2 because those backs act as the wingers all the time. Which when it works, it looks quite exciting. But when we played Los Angeles had watched the tape clearly, because every time Morrow or Morgan went forward, the counterattack would go down that wing, knowing that there was no one there, and they scored 4 goals against us. I think the formation is leading to a lot of goals. We don't have 4 stay-at-home defenders who are really going to sort of mine the home front. Instead, those 2 guys are loose cannons. It's the Greg Vanny, our coach, it's the style that he likes. So it's a 4-4-2, but expect those 2 backs to be running wild.
All right. Well, so you would say that you're susceptible on the counter.
Oh yes,
well. That is a story Ron and I are very familiar with. Ron talks about it all the time, so we'll just transfer that. Ron, what formation do you think we will see, and who do you think our starters will be on Wednesday? And I will follow up on your points.
Well, it's really hard to predict what the formation is going to be. This 4-3-3 worked so well last night that you almost think he has to stick with it just to see. Because if they can put another performance with this formation again, it's like, wow, we may have struck gold or all of a sudden. So I do expect, because Ramos was injured and he's only got a few days to get healthy. Rivas is nursing a groin injury; he only has a few days to get healthy. So if you have the same type of injuries that are unlikely to get better when you have such a quick turnaround and a flight all the way up to Toronto, I would expect the same formation. You might see the exact same lineup. The only changes you might see in the lineup are potentially Rivas coming in for Baden, but probably not. I would say the more likely alternative would be Rafael Ramos maybe coming in for Tyler Turner. Tyler Turner was the only player that I thought was somewhat iffy last night. The good news for the youngster was he just didn't make any horrible mistakes except for that call that probably should have been a handball that Orlando City got lucky on. So I assume Adrian Heath will probably he likes to stick with what works when he finds something that works. You know, we played a 4-3-3 in Portland earlier this year, and it worked really well. And then we took it to Columbus, and it failed miserably. So I don't know if that's something that's going to happen against Toronto. It looks like the good thing about Toronto is they look fairly injured with Bradley and Giovinco, so that bodes well for us. But the last time the last time we played Toronto, they forced everything into the interior. Like Mark said, they have those two center backs that do most of the defending. So they will force Orlando into the center. But with this formation, Orlando stays fairly wide and knocks the ball around. So it could be a good matchup. So I think Keith goes with the same thing.
All right, I thought Tyler Turner played pretty well defensively last night. I don't think he offered much going forward. That's really my thoughts on that. And I also thought that Bowden was great on the left wing last night. I mean, we know that Bowden has quality crossing. I did not know Bowden could pass the ball so accurately, so consistently. I'm not sure of the statistics, but I think he might have been the most accurate passer last night. So, if we do take him, or if he does play there again, I would hope that his consistency in the pass with his passes remains the same. So, and I don't think there's any chance we can sit Kyle Larin at this point. Coming off five goals in 2 games. So, usually I call for the switch between Ribeiro and Larin, but I'm going to vary from that. And Mark, you're a Canadian. What's your thoughts on Kyle Larin generally?
The history of Canadian soccer is we have goalkeepers, we have defenders, and once in a while we have midfielders, but we can't score. So how Larin, a fine Canadian, has gotten through our fingers and ended up scoring goals for a team in Florida, there's no justice in the world.
And what about on a national team level? How do you feel about Kyle Larin and the big picture moving forward?
Oh, he's a foundation player. The Canadian team is very young. There's no one in that spot. It's Larin's for the years to come.
All right. So, there you guys have it. Mark gave us a bit about Toronto and what we should expect. Most of you know what we have to offer and the players that Ron and I think talk about. Ron, did you have any general points that you wanted to discuss this morning?
No, we're covering it all. I don't have anything in particular.
All right, and Mark, I think you had a couple questions about Orlando City for Ron and I.
Yes, I'm Toronto. Well, the trading window and the signing window is open, I think, until Friday, and Toronto has been looking for defenders, whether it's a signing. We had a new defender play last night, Kantari, and one of your central defenders has been waived by the team. There's been some talk on the Toronto fan forums as why don't we get this guy?
So
you know all about him.
All right. Well, I'll go first, and I'll let Ron, tie up my loose ends or clear my ambiguity, so to speak. I think St. Ledger is a decent defender. He came to us as a late trial, and he played lots of minutes, and he played some really good minutes, and he played some really, really bad minutes. So, what the discrepancy between his high level of play and his low level of play blows my mind. I have no idea. But that second central defender is kind of somewhere where Orlando City mix and matches. So maybe he didn't, get his full rhythm because he had to come in and out, and he had to play with Colin, he had to play with Hines. So that's just my thoughts. Generally, I think he's solid. Taking attackers, he's solid clearing the ball. I don't know why he was so bad sometimes, but sometimes he was really, really bad. Ron?
Well, first of all, Toronto would have to do some investigating to see exactly why he was waived. We still have no idea what he did. I mean, it was a serious breach of club policy, but I don't think he got waived because of his performance on the field. So I thought Sean St. Ledger was fairly good this year. I mean, if we don't sign him and Seb Hines, literally days before the season starts, this team doesn't even have a second center back. And for most of the season, the defense was the strong suit while the team struggled in attack. So I would imagine that Sean St. Ledger could find. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad defense around MLS, so I can't imagine that he couldn't make some team at least in a depth role, especially in a fairly cheap way to find a player in the end of the transfer window, like Mark said. So they have to just do some investigating to see exactly what St. Ledger did. If it was something that maybe a team doesn't want to take on, who knows? But he's got enough talent to fill in, especially. I mean, if you had some injuries and you had to throw Sean St. Ledger in there, he's somebody you can feel fairly comfortable with. I mean, it's that simple.
Just because we've played them and I kind of follow them a little bit closer, I think Sean St. Ledger would walk onto NYCFC and start tomorrow. I don't think that central defending, they're terrible, and he's better than both the guys they have. So, and also a shout out to you, Sean St. Ledger, because you always talk to me about ribs on Twitter, and I really appreciate that. So, and if you happen to see this and you want to have ribs before you leave Orlando, by all means, I've been ready. All right, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I always have sympathy for international center backs because MLS teams do this. They bring these guys in. They have to learn 100 players or more, like defending against players. They have to learn all these playing surfaces and stadiums. When we watch established European or South American central defenders, they have been with a club and know that league and know those stadiums and know the players on opposing teams like the back of their hand. And Toronto does it, and it seems like Orlando did it too. You bring in international center backs, and within months you're saying, "Oh, this guy is has weaknesses," but it's a critical position, and so much of it is knowing the other teams so well that if you want to shut down a forward, you have to have watched him for years, been burned by him 10 times before you know how to get in position to shut him down. So I think it's a weakness of MLS teams that they bring in big names to play the central positions and then pull the plug while they're still in the learning process.
Well, just to follow up, I have 2 points to follow up on you, Mark. My first point is I hope Seb Hines got burned twice last game by Josie Altidore, and that doesn't happen again. I know Altidore won't be playing this game, but moving on, I think Hines will stay with us, and hopefully he will, learn Altidore's little tricks, because he really got owned by Altidore last game. And just to support your point, I just looked it up. Sean St. Ledger has been a journeyman since 2011, 4 teams, and before that he was at Preston North End for almost 200 caps. So I think that just there's the background on St. Ledger for just to support your point, Mark. And I think you had one other question for us, right, Mark?
Oh, remind me. I think I've forgotten it.
No, I didn't write it down. But all right, well, I think I agree with Ron. We'll see a 4-3-3. I hope that Toronto is actually leaky on defense because our goal scoring has been phenomenal. So I channeled Wade for a win in this last week versus Columbus at home. So Wade, I'm going to go back to that well. I'm going to channel you again, and I'm going to say we have a scoring bonanza versus Toronto, and it's going to be 3-0 because their big three aren't going to play. So Mark, there's my bold prediction. You're up next.
I can imagine a 3-3 draw rather than 3-0. Toronto looks different on the road than it does at home. I think they're going to bounce back, and I wouldn't be that surprised to see Michael Bradley, especially after last night's performance, that Bradley's recovery gets sped up a little bit, and Bradley annoyed could just score 3 goals on you alone.
I know. Lots of teams can score 3 goals on us. All right, Ron?
Well, you make this prediction, and it's a very different prediction if they have Bradley on the field and Giovinco on the field. If those guys aren't healthy or aren't 100%, I think Orlando City can win, and I almost would expect them to win because I don't think Toronto's that good without those guys. But I assume Bradley will play, and I assume Giovinco will be getting closer to 100%. That being said, I think, assuming those guys are on the field, we'll see a 1-1, 2-2 draw, which would be a good result for Orlando City on a quick turnaround going up on a midweek to Toronto. If those, I could also see a loss because the indicators probably point in Toronto's direction. But hopefully Orlando City has this surge of momentum now after such a big win last night, and they can at least get 1 point. They have to pick up almost 1 point in every game from here on out to stay in this playoff race.
I'm riding the wave, guys. I'm riding the wave, Ron. That's it. All right, well, any other final points, either of you, just generally, Mark or Ron? No?
I would say Orlando, if they had a choice of when could we play Toronto twice in 1 month, they were brilliant to choose August because Toronto has a tradition of firing the coach every year, and part of that is August is always our downfall. August is quite often, I think August is when we realize we can't make the playoffs because of this summer despair or summer morass or summer swamp that we fall into. So you've picked an awfully good time to play us twice.
And, both times we have to come up there, so hopefully, for whatever reason, we can pick up some points there. I mean, you guys came here and stole 3 from us, so I'd hope that we can, maybe steal 3 back and then maybe draw or, just not get out of 0 like Ron said. All right, guys, well, there you have it. Thank you, as usual, Ron.
Thanks, guys,
right.
as always.
Mark, thanks for coming on. We loved having you. You can, if you guys need any other Toronto FC information, you can find Mark's blog at mistakebythelake.com. As usual, read Ron's articles at citysoccertalk.com. Follow Ron on Twitter. You can follow Mark on Twitter. Mark, what was your Twitter handle?
Still kicking TFC.
There you go. You guys can follow Mark on Twitter if you need some Toronto information on the daily. And also make sure to watch or download City Soccer Talk live every morning at 9. So there you guys have it. Hopefully we get the result we need on Wednesday and we, keep this August momentum up. And again, let's forget July. Peace out.
Thanks.